What's going on, y'all? It's TCG here, back again with another video. And today, I'm going to talk to you about cards that I think you should be picking up in OP-07. You know, these are not all just super rares or anything. There's a couple uncommons, rares, stuff like that. And if I miss a card, in your opinion, in this video, let me know down in the comments below. These are just the cards that I think are good generic staples that I think people should be picking up. There's definitely other cards in here to pick up. Don't get me wrong. Maybe some that are a little more archetypal specific or stuff like that. Specific for certain leaders and stuff. These are more of your generic staples, cards that I think could fit well into a lot of different decks, maybe give or take one or two here or there based on their effects and stuff. But be that as it may, I still think that some of these cards you should be picking up. Now, before we jump into this, I want to shout out to today's spot. Now, before we get into this, I want to shout out today's sponsor, and that's going to be Dueling Guard.
Huh? You still aren't using Dueling Guard? Then you aren't using the best TCG accessories on the market. Dueling Guard makes the highest quality TCG deck boxes with the most stunning artwork I've ever seen. Their modular design allows for easy access to your decks and dice. They don't just make deck boxes, they also make the highest quality binders with side-loading pages to keep your expensive cards safe and protected. They also make high-quality playmats and now even sleeves. I personally use their sleeves on all of my cards and cannot go back to another sleeve after I've been using theirs. They are grippy and slick when you need them to be, and I have no doubts that my cards are protected in them. Gear up with Dueling Guard to protect your cards in style. Don't forget to use code GUMGUMTCG to get a discount at checkout.
All right, y'all. So without further ado, the first card on the list is Karina. Now, this is a rare from '07, and it's just a 3-cost blocker with 1,000 counter. But on play, it gives up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 for the turn. You know, I think that card's interesting just for red as a whole, being all power-based most of the time. And this just being a small generic blocker. I know, I'm pretty sure that Law was running this in early lists in '07 in the East, but I don't know if people are really going to test this out now that we kind of know what to play in Law, but I still think this card's got some potential. I think it's pretty good. It's definitely good for your red-purple Uta deck, and who knows, we have a Shanks leader coming out. It could be film type again, but even if it's not, I think this card's just generic and good enough to warrant you picking up a couple copies of it. Just being a rare. It does have an alt art if you're interested in getting those, though. But yeah, I think it's a decent card. I definitely think it's one that you should add to your collection. And the next, I think, is one that is really good. It's going to be our SR from this set for red. The only SR, if you take a look here, is Monkey D. Dragon. Big man himself, the world's most wanted criminal. And he's an 8/9 with Rush. And on play, gives your leader or up to one of your characters up to 2 Rested Dawn cards. So really, really strong, high cost, high power rush option for red now available. I mean, red's had really good rush options this entire game, it feels like, but this one's just like really good. It feels really good in certain decks. I know that red purple Luffy likes this card a lot, and I could see this going into even Marco down the line. I could see it going into tons of decks. I mean, it's just such a good card. And I definitely think you should be picking up your copies. I don't think it'll be too expensive either. Next, we got another rare, and we're switching over to green because honestly, the rest of the red cards I don't feel like are that great. We have the only other honorable mention I'd say is Tanaka-san, and just because it's a trigger blocker for red, we have one already that's Kobe, but here's another one if you would like it. And the rest just don't interest me too much. This Baccarat is also kind of interesting, but I feel that these other cards are kind of Rev Army specific. This Dragon's Breath isn't horrible, but I don't think it's amazing. And then I think Ein is all right as well, but just not worth talking about that much or putting in here. Yeah, I will say, I know that some people are going to call me out for this. If you're an Ace player, Mask Deuce is a good card to pick up as well. But other than that, I do think that that's about it for the red card. So moving into green, we have Eroge. Of course, we got a whole bunch of Supernova support this set to go with our new Bonnie leader, and Eroge is no exception. This being just generic, you don't have a half a Supernova leader for this effect to take place, but it's 4 or 5 blocker, 1,000 counter, and into your turn just sets a Dawn card as active. I mean, for a rare that's going to cost you 10 to maybe 50 cents a piece, like, there's no reason to not pick this up if you enjoy playing green. I think this is a great card. I could see this in many decks. Green, purple, Dofi, definitely in Bonnie. Even decks down the line, Carrot, even. I mean, I don't know. This card seems really good to me, just being able to give you a free Dawn at the end of your turn. Of course, it's meant to be used with Bonnie. It gives you that free Dawn for your Bonnie leader. However, other decks can easily take advantage of that with like counter events. So definitely a good card there. Next is Otama, and this is a little more specific, being a Wano Searcher. 1 cost, 0 power, 2,000 counter though. It's a new Wano green 2K counter, which is good. I believe we've only really had Ezo up until this point, and this is just another great option because it's not only a 2K, but it's a great body that searches you more cards. They definitely want to play this in Yamato, Odin, even Perona, all those lists that are running all the Wano cards. Definitely a really good option there. So make sure to pick up your Otamas. And then next we have Bonnie. A green super rare from this set. One of the better cards in this set, in my opinion. This card's absolutely nuts for green. 5 cost, 6,000 power, counter 1,000. On play, up to one of your opponent's rested characters or Dawn do not become active during their next refresh phase. It's just a mini Doflamingo, but it can also hit Dawn. That's really important. If your opponent's going to 10 Dawn the next turn and you can stop one of their Dawn becoming active and kind of hold them off from a 10 cost body, that's pretty powerful. If you know that they're going to try and slam that 10 cost body down on the field, this could really take them off of their curve, essentially, and also keep their aggressive characters locked down. I think it's a really, really good card, and definitely one that you should be picking up. Definitely a green staple. Next is Hawkins, and this is more of a Bonnie card. I guess any supernova, so it could be Bonnie, Kid, Luffy, Law, whatever you want to put this in. This card's nuts, but it's decently good in any other green deck, but it's really good in the Supernova decks because it becomes a blocker. It's a 6 cost, 7,000 power body that if your leader has Supernova in its type, it gets blocker. And then once per turn, if it were to be removed from play by one of your opponent's effects, you can instead rest one of their characters. So if they were to pop this, bottom deck it, bounce it to your hand, any kind of removal on this card, you instantly get to rest one of their guys instead. So very good. Important to note, though, that doesn't happen when you just block with this and it would to be destroyed. It has to be removed by an effect. So nonetheless, still a great card. And then next we have another specific one. This is going to be Jinbei, 4/5 with the 1,000 counter. On play, plays a 4 or lower 7 Warlords from your hand. And, this doesn't have to be stuck into a 7 Warlords leader per se. I know people have been talking about Zoro and Sanji playing a 7 Warlords build, and honestly, this could go into any blue deck as long as you're playing enough 7 Warlords support, and I think that there's a lot of really good options out there now. So definitely a good card that I think you should be picking up. Blue getting some extra tempo there. And then Boa Hancock, our other SR for blue, just being a good card. I mean, 6/8, that's good stats. And on play, up to one of your opponent's characters that's not Luffy can not attack until the end of their next turn. Then you get to bottom deck a 1 or less. So really strong there. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how often you're going to be bottom decking 1 or lesses, maybe a searcher or something like that. But the stopping an attack is pretty powerful too. If you play this right on curve and you stop one of their bodies from being able to hit you the next turn, that just saves you extra cards in hand. And just a good body all around. Definitely a good card to be picking up. Another one to follow it is going to be Ace, a 5/6 blocker with a 1,000 counter. On play, draws 2 and puts 2 back from your hand onto the top or bottom of your deck in your order. Yeah, just a really good 5 cost blocker. I mean, this could go in many decks. Definitely in your blue yellow Ace, definitely in Marco down the line. I could see this played in Queen even, replacing X Drake. Yeah, no, I think this is really good. Maybe not replace X Drake. I might retract my words there. I could see this card also next to X Drake. But I like it a lot. I think it's a really good card and definitely one you should be picking up because it's only a rare. Next, purple. The only card I could find for purple that I think you should be picking up is this Sanji. I mean, we could take a look through them real quick, but I feel like most of them are the Foxy Pirate support other than this Sanji and this Reiju. And those are both Reiju specific, I guess Vinsmoke family specific, but right now that means they're Reiju specific, and I just don't think that they're too good. And then also about the blue cards, I'll say the rest of them felt like very Warlord heavy or very Kuja Pirates heavy. I did have actually 2 more down here. Sorry. The events are going to be later. They just sort them different in here. But yeah, the rest of them kind of just felt too specific, whereas I felt the Jinbei, Hancock, Ace, you know what I'm saying. These cards feel a little more generic than your Kuja Pirates Searcher. But I digress. The only thing I could really think of for purple is going to be the Sanji and then a couple events down here. But this Sanji's like one of the better SRs out of the set, in my opinion, being a card that's going to go into almost every purple deck until it gets outclassed. And I feel like that'll be a while. It's a 6,000 power body for 6 Dawn, 2,000 counter. While you have two or more fewer Dawn cards than your opponent. So if you have 2 or less Dawn than your opponent does, this card costs 3 less. So if your opponent's at 8 Dawn and you're at 6 or less, this card is only a 3 in your hand. So for Law, that's instantly broken because they usually like to be lower on Dawn, just using that leader effect progressively. And that means you can cheat this card out in that deck. And not only in Law, I mean, you could do this in any purple deck that's putting their Dawn away. You know, Law is just the first one that comes to mind because they're so abusive with their Dawn. But not to mention that it's also a blocker. Like, this card is crazy. It's a 3/6 2K blocker. This card's absolutely nuts, and you need to get a playset of it. This is a good purple staple. Moving into black next, we have another great staple here, and that's going to be Stussy, a 9-drop 9K body, no counter, but on play, you get to place one of your characters into the trash and KO up to one of your opponent's characters. No cost restriction, just trash one of your dudes, KO one of theirs. Really strong. Just great generic popping removal. Of course, you have to watch out for things that cannot be KO'd, but other than that, this can pop anything in the game. All you have to do is sacrifice one of your own guys, and that's no problem. I think this card's really good, very busted, and I could see it played in many black decks. But it feels a little costly, but like I said, for the removal that it gives you, if you don't have the cost reduction, this is just broken. And then next we have Monkey D. Luffy, Nightmare Luffy, if you will. It's a 5/6 with 1,000 counter. Big effect. When attacking, you trash up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 2 or less. Then you put any number of characters with the cost of 4 or more from your trash at the bottom of your deck in any order. And then he gains 1,000 power during this turn for every 3 cards you put at the bottom of your deck. That's a lot. But basically, you trash any of your opponent's characters with the cost of 2 or less. So when you pair this with minusing costs and stuff, this card just becomes really good, being able to get rid of cards like Sabo that cannot be KO'd, and or anything that Sabo is on the field with that cannot be KO'd after that turn. And then he can get big. I mean, I don't know how often or how big you can make Luffy, but he can gain some power. So definitely a good option for black to use to help in the mirror matches and to help get rid of other sticky bodies. Definitely a card I think you should be grabbing. Good generic body. And then next we have Sabo, secret rare from this set. It's an 8/9, no counter. On play, trash a card from your hand, and you get to KO a 5 or less and a 3 or less. Really strong there. I mean, that's just Sakazuki and Kobe in one card. And as a former smoker player, this card is absolutely nuts, and I love it. I think it's an awesome card, and I definitely think you need a playset of it. As well as Frankie. Moving into the yellow cards here, we're starting off with a vanilla 2K 4/5, and has a trigger that says draw 1. Then if you have 1 or less life, you play this card. So this card's cracked. I mean, it may not seem it off the bat just because it's a vanilla, but it is a 2K. It is a decent stat body. I mean, 4/5, there's definitely better. There's 4/6s out there for vanillas, but the trigger is what you really like here. You know, Enel loves to be at low life. This is specifically made for Vegapunk, but goddamn, it's Enel support. I mean, trigger, draw 1 card, then if you have 1 or less life, play this card. So not only are you going to trigger this out of your life in Enel easily, you're going to play this card for free almost every time, and also draw a card. So just really strong there. Definitely replaces some other 2Ks that Enel was playing before. Next, we have another Luffy card. This is going to be your 5/6 Egghead Luffy with 1,000 counter. Activate main. You can play this character in your trash. If your life is 2 or less, you KO up to one of your opponent's cost 4 or less characters. Then you draw a card. So not only is this removal, but it also replaces itself with a draw. And then it has a trigger to also KO up to one of your opponent's cost 4 or less characters. Like, this is just busted. Black Yellow Luffy is loving this card. Just having a new option to play off of the little Luffy. I mean, I guess you could also play it in Ace or Sabo as well. But Luffy definitely takes great advantage of this card. Enel lists are even playing this. And Yeah, it's absolutely busted. Even in Black Yellow Luffy, you can reduce the cost of stuff and then play this, pop it. I've even been able to, in testing, cycle this twice in a turn, drawing 2 cards and removing 2 bodies while also buffing my leader. So, very, very strong card there. And then next, one of my favorite cards out of the set is going to be our other secret rare. That's going to be the 10 cost, 10,000 power Ace. On play, you can add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. Instant heal. Then, if you have 2 life or less, you get Rush on this card. Like, absolutely absurd. Game ender, game extender. Like, this card's busted, man. Like, if you're playing yellow, you need a playset of this card. And it might be a little pricier than the rest of these cards, but damn, this card's good, and it will be good for quite a while. Now let's move into the events. Like I said, this sorted weird, so I didn't realize that until now. I guess thinking about it when you build decks on the sim, it does put the events at the bottom, but I didn't think about it. Our first event is going to be a green event, and that's going to be Demon 9 Flash. That's just what I'm going to call it. I don't want to say this whole name. 2 cost event. It's basically your green Amaru. It's a 2 cost main event. Up to one of your leader or characters gains 3,000 power during this turn. Then you may rest one of your cost 3 or greater characters. If you did, rest up to one of your opponent's cost 5 or less characters. Now, this card's okay. I think it's good. Definitely for green decks. Definitely in your Supernova decks. I mean, you could do some funny things with this, but I don't think it's a 4 of. It also has a trigger to rest a 4 or less, but I don't think it's a 4 of. I definitely could see some decks running a couple copies of this, though. I think it's definitely situational, though, but resting at 5 or less is definitely something that decks needed access to with Sabo running around so much. So definitely a good card I think you should be picking up. Next we have basically, I mean, this feels like Blue's Rad Beam. It's a counter, and you return a cost 2 or higher character to its owner's hand, but you return one of your cost 2 or higher characters to its owner's hand. I think that text is written that way because we will get cards that steal other cards at one point, so it would have to bounce it back to its opponent's hand. Anyway, it gives your leader or character plus 4k during this battle. Then it also has a trigger to draw 2 and place 2 on the bottom of your deck. So pretty good. Like I said, I mean, you don't always want to be bouncing your own cards to your hand, but if you have something like a 2k on the field or a body that you would want back in your hand that you could play and get more advantage out of next turn while also defending yourself for 4k, I think that is really strong. Also being an uncommon, like definitely a card worth picking up. Next, we have another rare, 2-cost blue main event. Up to one of your 7 warlords of the C-type leader or characters gains 2,000 power during this turn, and your opponent cannot activate blocker when the selected card attacks. Also has a trigger to draw a card. This being 7 warlords typing, so it's searchable, as well as Diable Jambe with a boost built in. This card's broken. Like, if you're playing against Dofi, you're playing against Boa, you're playing against Croc, you're playing against any deck that's playing a 7 warlords package, you need to watch out for this card, especially if it's near the end of the game and you're trying to survive on blockers. This card will catch you off guard every single time, just like Diable Jambe, but I mean, essentially better, being able to give a boost as well. So definitely watch out for this card. Next, we have Noro Beam. I think it's Slow Beam. 1-cost purple event, and it's just like a mini Hell's Judgment. It's counter, Dawn -1, give up to one of your opponent's leaders and characters -2k for the turn. So hits 2 bodies and gives -2k to both of them. So I like that. I think it's a decent card. Is it better than other cards we have? No, but I definitely think it's one that you should pick up at least if you like purple. This could definitely be played at one point or another. Might even run this in a purple-yellow Croc build personally. Next we're going to claim the One Piece. This is a 1-cost searcher event for Big Mom Pirates and Animal Kingdom Pirates. Just looks at the top 5 and adds 1 of either. Also has a trigger to activate the main effect. Just decent good card that I think you should have in your hands for when Pudding and King come out later this year. Don't know if lists are really running this card, but it's better be safe than sorry, having a generic searcher for both. And then next we have, in my opinion, I think this might be the best rare in the set. Tempest Kick. This is just the new Great Eruption. It's a 1-cost main event that draws a card, and after this, if your trash has 10 or more cards, you give up to one of your opponent's characters -3 cost for the turn. So not every deck can really take great advantage of this, but definitely Moria could take advantage of this, and also definitely Rob Lucci. But being able to have 10 cards or more in your trash at a certain point in the game, or quickly, is definitely something that Lucci and Moria do better than any other black deck that's not named Sakazuki. But yeah, I could see those decks taking advantage of this card. Yeah, and it also has a KO trigger to KO a 3 or less, so I think it's pretty decent. And then next we have Flame Split. This is going to be your 1-cost yellow event of the set. It's another rare. Main counter: give up to 1 leader or character plus 2k power for the turn. After this, if your opponent has 2 or less life, you rest a 4 or less. So, nothing crazy, but being able to rest a 4 or less while also giving a small buff, I think that's pretty good. It's just like an Amaru. It's like a reverse Amaru almost. Yeah, I don't really know how to describe it, but it also has a trigger to rest a opponent's 4 or less. I could definitely see this played in Yamato. Also being Wano typing, so it's searchable, like, feels pretty decent to me. But that's going to wrap it up for all the cards I think you should be picking up. You know, like I said, don't let this stop you from picking up any other cards in this set, but I think these are the cards that I would consider somewhat, if not full-on staples for their colors, respectively. And yeah, if you think I missed anything, let me know in the comments below. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.